Okay, so today we're going to cover dividing fractions. And to divide fractions by a real number, or to divide by a real number, you're going to multiply by its reciprocal. And then you're going to use the same rule that we would divide algebraic fractions. So for example, if I were asking you to divide this right here, 5/8 divided by 2/9, I am going to change the second fraction to the reciprocal. And what the reciprocal does is it flips the fraction upside down. So 5/8 times 9/2. And now at this point, we would do the same thing that we did in last night's homework. We can either multiply straight across and get 45/16 and then reduce, or you can reduce if possible before you multiply. Now this one, we can't simplify anything, so I'm just going to multiply 9 times 5, 8 times 2, and I'm okay with you leaving it improper. You don't need to make it a decimal, and you don't need to make it a mixed number. The same thing on the first example where we actually have variables in our problem. We're going to keep the first fraction the same. So we keep it exactly how it is. I'm going to change the division sign to a multiplication, and then I'm going to flip the second fraction to its reciprocal. And now I can either multiply straight across, or I can simplify before I multiply. So I could even put it all together in one big fraction bar. And I can look for things to simplify. This will cancel. And then here my final answer. I can also simplify the 4 and the 2. And here the final answer is 2/, and then I have 2 y's left. Or you can multiply it as is and get 4x over 2xy squared, and then simplify at this point. And then reduce. This becomes a 1, this becomes a 2, the x's cancel, and then you write what remains. I'm okay with you doing it either way. On example A here, again, you should factor everything. Now, if you want to factor first or flip first, whatever you're more comfortable doing. I like to flip it first so I don't forget. So I'm going to rewrite the first fraction, change it to multiplication, and I'm going to flip it upside down first. Now I'm going to look for things if I need to factor anything. The only thing that needs to be factored is this, and this is the difference of two squares. So I'm going to put 18 over x minus 5 and x plus 5 multiplied. And again, I'm going to look for things to simplify. If you want to make and extend this, I notice I have an x plus 5 here and here, and I can also simplify the 18 and the 24. I can divide them both by 6. So 18, 6 goes into 18 3 times, 6 goes into 24 4 times. And now I'm going to multiply what remains. And what I end up, let's see, what do I have left here? I have 3 on the top, and then 4 parentheses x minus 5. You do not need to distribute. You can leave it in factored form. So I don't need to distribute the 4 to the x and to the 5. I would leave it just like this. Let's try example B. This one, I've got to factor all 4 pieces. So again, first thing I'm going to do is flip it. So I'm going to do x to the second, let me write it in a darker color, x squared plus 3x minus 10 over 2x plus 6. This one stays the same. Change the division to multiplication, and now flip the fraction upside down. And now I need to factor all 4 pieces, the 2 numerators and the 2 denominators. So this top one, I'm looking for factors of -10, that give me positive 3, and that will be x plus 5 and x minus 2. The denominator here, it's not a trinomial. I can pull a greatest common factor out of 2. So 2, and I'm left with x plus 3. This numerator over here, I'm looking for factors of negative 12 that give me negative 1, and that's going to be x minus 4, x plus 3. Now, when you're factoring these things, you really should FOIL it and make sure it goes back to make sure you've picked the correct signs. And then lastly, this denominator here, this is the difference of 2 squares. So x plus 2, x minus 2. So now I'm going to look for things that I can simplify. So I can cancel out an x minus 2. I can also cancel out an x plus 3. And anybody see anything else that will reduce? Thank you. For some reason, my stylus didn't work. Okay, so now what remains is the x plus 5. I didn't cross that off. The x minus 4. These are all left on the top. And then in the denominator, I have a 2 and an x plus 2. And you're done. There's nothing else that can be simplified here. So once you flip it, the process is the same as last night. Let's try an example on the back page. This one has 3 fractions. So I need to follow order of operations. So the only 2 that are being divided are these 2. So this fraction is going to get flipped. Because this is a multiplication sign, I don't flip that last fraction. So when you have multiplication and division left in your problem, you work left to right. So 2x divided by y raised to the 3rd power. And then I'm going to change this to multiplication, flip it upside down, and then just rewrite the last fraction. So now if you want to expand it out, you can. Remember, we need to first apply this exponent. This exponent of 3 goes to the entire fraction. So really what this means is 2x over y times 2x over y times 2x over y. We've got 3 of them. So we could multiply that out, and we could get 8x to the 3rd over y to the 3rd times y squared over x. I'm just rewriting. I'm now going to look for things that I can simplify. So notice I have an x here that I could cross off with this one. I could also simplify my y's here. I've got 2 y's here, so I could take the exponent away and left with 1 y. Then I also have an 8 and a 4 that I can simplify. I can make this a 1 and make this a 2. And now I'm going to multiply what remains. 2 times x to the 3rd, and then I have 1y in the denominator. And you're done. So your homework for this lesson is going to be 2 through 46 even. Now again, what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to post the answers to these even problems. So that way, tomorrow, when you get back to school, you can open up the file and check your homework. And then if you do have any questions before you take your quiz over the weekend, you can email me and I'll work out any problems you need to see. Any questions on the division? Same process.